Hey everyone, Sumo Spiffy here. It's time once again to don our robes of judgment and declare the righteous victors of the upcoming July Basho in Nagoya, Japan. But we're doing that privately so we don't spoil the ending. This video is us pretending we don't know what's gonna happen by accidentally making a whole bunch of bad tier list predictions. And by us, I mean me, all of you, the community, and Sumo Jason. Or, if you're a fan from before the dark times, Jason Sumo. His channel is linked among the other creators in the description if you want to check him out. If you're new to our tier lists, each tier relates to a certain range of wins. That's on the screen, and it's timestamped if you need to come back to it. We are predicting what we think each wrestler will do if they stay in all 15 days. We are not trying to figure out if someone will drop due to injury. And if you want to make predictions, you can. There's a Google form linked in the description, and everyone who fills one out becomes part of the community's tier list. That tier list will be released on our live stream this Saturday at 9 AM US Eastern Time. We'd love to see you there. Alright, enough faffing about. Tier list. Hoshoryu and Onosato. Sumo's current grand champions remain somewhat unknown quantities due to health concerns. Hoshoryu just returned to regular training, but says his hamstring is being taken care of, which is basically, he's okay but not 100%. At tip-top shape he can maybe hit 13 wins, so at less than that, we'll plug him in at A+. Besides, if he fights 15 days, this is pretty much where he lands every time, and we're still waiting for him to show we can expect more. As for Onosato, we actually know a little bit more. It seems he's been getting whacked around in practice by a Makushita teammate, so he's definitely not okay. Worse still, he's apparently gone back to throwing it in reverse when things don't go well. It's something we can have fun with,
That's that ass.
but it also means he's falling back into his one really problematic habit, which he'd been slowly breaking before his injury. Practice doesn't always translate to competition, good or bad, but I'm still gonna drop him to A-. That's pretty low for a Yokozuna. He'll probably fight, and he may well drop out, but I could see a scenario where he's like 8-3, so he's not going anywhere, then drops 3 of the last 4 to finish 9-6. Jason, on the other hand, has both Yokozuna at S tier. That's where they should be, I'm just not convinced that's where they'll end up. I have a feeling we're gonna split the points here, but I don't even know who's more likely to get which guy right. Kirishima. Look, I'd love to see Kiri become a Yokozuna. I don't think it's gonna happen. He wins through tactics, skill, and grit, all traits we want to see in a champion, but he simply is not the dominant physical force he needs to be to expect 13+ wins out of him. Last Basho, with every real obstacle out of his way, he still couldn't get past 12. Not only that, but he got straight up blasted by Gonoyama and Hakunofuji. Those two specifically may not do it again, but there are too many wrestlers capable of doing something similar in any given match. Tack on the fact he's only 2-4 over the final weekend in this year's Bashos, and he really needs everything to come together for a 13-2 to happen. Maybe it does, but I'm not counting on it. Jason and I concur on A+ for Kiri. Kotozakura. Sumo's Big T's did it to us again in May, following up a surprisingly strong March with a disastrous 3 wins due to a back injury that went unreported until he dropped out after day 11. If the back is healed, maybe he finds that 10-win form again, but I suddenly feel less than hopeful about his prospects. Still, he's one of Sumo's most consistent performers, and I have no reason to think he'll fail to return to at least his previous barely winning form, C+. Jason, however, remains that bit more positive and places Koto at B. Atamifuji and Kotoshoho. I held out very little hope for our fresh-faced Sekiwake in May on the basis of opposition that never showed up. In fact, I'd say Atami fought at about the level I'd expect, which works a lot better facing Maegashira 6, 7, and 8 instead of Ozeki 1, 2, and 3. And that statement is literally true. Despite Kotozakura going most of the Basho and Kirishima nearly winning it, the top Sekiwake never had to face either one. If that got him to 9 wins, and there's almost no way he gets that lucky again, he can't go above C-. And even that's considering we don't know how healthy a lot of these guys are. I'll give it up to Kotoshoho though. He'd never shown up looking reasonably healthy for 2 straight Bashos, and in May it finally happened. If he can keep that rolling, he has a chance to hold on to that Sekiwake spot for another Basho yet. I don't think it's a good chance, since all the guys who beat him in May are staring him down again, and if staying healthy 2 straight bashos has been tricky, doing it for 3 is hardly guaranteed. But
you're telling me there's a chance.
Yeah, C-. Jason, however, does not share my doubts. He is absolutely feeling these guys. Atamifuji at A- and Kotoshoho at B tier. Suddenly I have this sense he knows something I don't. Wakatakakage. Waka Prime continues to have these baffling superstar runs interspersed with mostly very normal results. Being Sekiwake, even Sekiwake 2, should help him avoid most of the toughest matchups early again, and if he can get off to a solid start, that combined with his Ozeki hopes might get him on another roll. Logic says he's B tier, locked in for 8 wins, but I'm feeling unusually optimistic. I think this could be the first time he gets 11 or more wins in 2 straight Sanyaku tournaments. Probably not, but maybe. A-. Jason goes for A+ Waka, which is also very reasonable. Odds are we both score here, I think. Aonishiki. This is basically a prediction on the health of Sumo's most important pinky toe. Aonishiki needs 10 wins to return to Ozeki immediately and avoid another 3-tournament grind. I doubt he'll be 100%, but I don't think he needs to be 100% to pull it off. Remember, assuming his injury happened on day 4 of March, he went 5-6 the rest of that basho with a busted toe that kept him out entirely 2 months later. That said, I have a feeling he'll be a little more conservative in his approach, and he also needs ring time to figure out what to do against the guys who learn to lift up under his arms. Jason and I both have him at A-. He either makes it back to Ozeki or falls just short. Yoshinofuji. Despite his outstanding May tournament, my opinion of Yoshi hasn't changed much. He started 1-3 against 4 Sanyaku opponents, then only saw Maegashira and nearly ran the table. That's pretty much him, a talented guy who's still figuring out how to handle the best of the best. It also didn't hurt that the Yusho race let him finish May with 4 straight double-digit ranked opponents. To his credit, he's been very good against healthy Onosato and Aonishiki, so he's gotta be licking his chops at the idea of facing busted up versions of him. In fact, he should be Onosato's day 1 opponent, which Onosato absolutely cannot be looking forward to. He's coming off his best career performance, he's generally on the upswing. Even though this is his first Sanyaku tournament, I'm gonna put him in B tier. This is optimistic, but I see him as a 7 to 10 win guy, and I'm leaning 10 wins being more likely than 7. Jason also has him at B tier, although I'm guessing he views 7 wins as less likely than I do. Oho! Every basho, Oho looks like he's falling further behind the curve, yet he keeps finding a performance like May's 9-6 just often enough to hover around the top of the rankings. The way things shook out, he was probably going to Komusubi even with an 8-7 record, but he absolutely luck-boxed his way into a final day match with Abi's shadow that sealed the deal. Atamifuji used to be one of his only good matchups near the top, but Atami wrecked him in May, and I suspect this version of Atami can keep doing that. Komusubi's not going to get the hyper-friendly final third schedule he had in May either. He's never had a winning record in the Sanyaku, and even with all the injuries up top, nothing suggests he's gonna pull it off here. D tier. For Jason, Oho is a C+, and the nature of Oho is such that it's a completely understandable pick. God, this f***ing guy. Fujinokawa and Takanosho. I had Fuji in F tier in May on the basis of potential health issues. Not only did he look healthy though, he had as favorable a lineup as he could have hoped for, plus a walkover win against Hoshoryu, and he still couldn't swing 8 wins. I'm not gonna assume the worst again, but there's just too many guys who ragdoll his ass to think he's ready for a magical Kachikoshi and his first Sanyaku spot. Unlike Fuji, I had Takanosho at D tier in May because I didn't think he'd get a lot of wins, but he looked as good as I could remember seeing him in March, so maybe he wouldn't get destroyed. And yet, like Fuji, he couldn't translate all those injuries into an 8th win. Worse yet, he needed relatively soft opponents the final 2 days just to hit 7. I don't think anything's fundamentally changed though, and he did somehow go 3-2 against the Sanyaku in May. I've got both these guys in D tier. On the flip side, Jason's still living in his positivity era, dropping both Fuji and Takanosho in at C+. I could easily see another 7-8 scenario where we both score, but if he gets more points than me off these two, he is a friggin' genius. Gonoyama. This is a super awkward prediction to make. Gonoyama spent March finally looking like the wrestler a lot of us thought he could be if he managed to balance hyper-aggression with not completely overplaying his hand and looking like a roped calf at a rodeo 5 times per basho. Of course, that was at 10 East in a basho where he started 9-1, then got ruined as soon as the real opposition came calling. But at 4 West, after starting the same way, he went 4-0 against the Sanyaku en route to an 8-2 start. He could not have asked for a better opportunity to at least stay in a Yusho race till the end and maybe even swing a Sanyaku berth. But after a struggling Ichiyamamoto threw him on his face, it's like he thought, control is for suckers, went all out the rest of the way, and utterly collapsed to 8-7. He can do this. Like, he just showed he can hang with the top of the ranks and get a decent number of wins. But it seems like the balance he needs between aggression and control might be too precise for him to consistently find. I'll put him at C-. If he does better, fantastic, but I can just as easily see him start slow, lose all track of what he's doing, and go like 4-11. Jason and I find common ground again, C- for him as well. Churanoumi. I've been watching a lot of Chura's matches for the Kisei breakdown, and minor spoiler, his strategy is a lot more standard than I'd thought. It just allows him to play around what his opponents do, so his matches often look quite a bit different from each other despite the same general approach. One general truth, though, is that while he can be a handful for some great wrestlers, it's not in a way that will consistently lead to wins. However, I think he realizes this. After his very reasonable 3-4 start in March at the same rank he has now, he switched up his style. You gotta try something new sometime, but in this case it got him fully roundhoused by the whole back half of his schedule. If he sticks to his style, I think he can hang in there. All the same, he's going in D tier just because the Sanyaku is so big now and all those guys should beat him most of the time. Jason goes C-, which is probably the smarter placement. Hiradoumi. Daieisho just set a record for most consecutive bashos at the same rank with 4, but let's not forget that Hiradoumi's now at 3. In terms of 7 and 8 records in May, his was a little more like Takanosho's than Fujinokawa's. If all 10 Sanyaku are active, that should actually help delay those matchups for him, which makes this slightly less doomed for him. They'll still be coming, but that's enough for me to slide him to C-. Jason's got him at C+, which, fair enough. I actually tend to think Hiradoumi will hit 8 wins before Daieisho, I just don't think either is likely to do it this time. Spoiler. Hakunofuji. That foot surgery sure seemed to work out well for Big Boy. He still hasn't quite figured out most of the Sanyaku, but like Hiradoumi, the sheer number of them should net him time to get on a roll. Given that he's quite good against the other high Maegashira outside of Gonoyama, that's a big plus. His odds of a winning record still, for the moment, rely on the health of his foot, which did clearly bother him at times in May. But if it's fixed, then he should be on the upswing. Jason and I both have him at C+. Daieisho. Our current record-setting Rikishi is technically outside the top 16 this time, though any injury dropouts above him immediately changes that. Having appeared to figure out Churanoumi is a definite plus, but there aren't many others. 4 of his losses in May were to opponents he still has winning records against, and while any single such loss isn't that meaningful, it wasn't like he got unlucky, he just got beat. He's still too good and has too many veteran tricks to count out, but I'm going C-. This is not quite pre-injury Daieisho, and at this point we can't assume we'll see him again. Jason hops in the boat with me one more time. Ichiyamamoto. Landing at 4 West squeaks Ichi out of the Sanyaku danger zone, although like with Daieisho, any injuries can change that quickly. For now, even though he's down just a couple ranks, his likely schedule looks quite a bit different than May's. Maybe not a lot easier, with Kotoeiho and Fujiseiun and Ryoga representing the upstarts ready to take him down a peg, plus Ura, Daieisho, and Papa Bear lingering as veteran problems, but different. His best chance at a winning record is probably to do okay and then get a little lucky with the schedule, which isn't a lot to lean on, but I don't think he'll get completely manhandled either. C-, and now that's 3 straight points of agreement with Jason. Ura. This is tough, because Ura's got a lot of coin flip matchups here. Apart from Daieisho, who generally smashes him, There's Hiradoumi, Hakunofuji, Ichiyamamoto, Shodai, Takayasu, Oshoma, and probably Tobizaru, where the winner often depends on who's in form. Wakamotoharu's usually a bad matchup, but we have no idea what kind of shape he'll be in. Kotoeiho's probably a slight favorite over Ura. Ura's 2-0 against Roga, and I'd expect a third straight if they fight here. He also got a win over Fujiryoga in May, but that'll never be an easy matchup. Sadly, Jason and I concur for the 4th straight time, putting Ura at C-. To get more favorable matchups, he'd likely need to face Maegashira 10, 11, and 12, and that usually isn't how the schedule goes at 5 East. 6 to 8 wins seems pretty correct here. Oshoma! I've been, not exactly singing, but at least mumbling Oshoma's praises for a little while, at least in terms of his ability to compete around the mid-ranks. Well, he looked better in May than any other time this year, but only had 3 wins against anyone doing halfway decent, and is not inspiring a lot of confidence. I know plenty of people vote him down because they don't like him. I try to keep that out of my judgment, but at this point I'm voting him down because I'm out of reasons to vote him up. C-. Jason's view on his chance at 8 wins is simply no. Oshoma goes into his D tier. Shodai. Last basho, I put Shodai at C- because chaos sort of rhymes with C-. That joke ended up holding all the truth though. A 6-9 record, but with a win that wound up dashing Kirishima's Yusho hopes, then only dropping half a rank on the Banzuke to boot. Might as well stick with what works, right? As for Jason, you're my fucking hero, dude. Fujiseiun. I was high on Fuji's chances in May, and for half a basho, he was exactly the guy I thought he'd be. Then he somehow lost to Aonishiki Fuji, which isn't great with Asanoyama, Atamifuji, and Kotoshoho on the way. But facing a massive downturn at a career-high rank, he battled through Fujinokawa and Hiradoumi to give himself a chance at 8 wins on day 15. Yeah, he ran into Hakunofuji, but what can you do? I still think he's very much a 6 to 9 win guy, but he can do work at this level, so we'll swing C+ here. Jason was a bit less impressed with Fujiseiun, it appears, plonking him down at C-. Kotoeiho. Surprising guy keeps surprising, news at 11. The question now is, after starting 7-3 in March and 9-2 in May, what does the littlest Koto do if he stumbles more off rip? Both those runs had some solid wins, but also some gimmies that aren't really here this time. Best case, I suppose, is Wakamotoharu remains a mess, and he gets a chance to walk through Tobizaru, Chiyoshoma, and Matakayumi. It could happen, but I'm actually thinking more about Aonishiki. Not that Kotoeiho is on his level, but before March, Aonishiki was a talented wrestler able to work without noticeable injury holding him back. Kotoeiho looked the same the last 2 bashos. If that continues, I think he can keep this train rolling. I can't go above C+ because the competition is quite a bit more difficult here, but I'm convinced he can win at this level. So is Jason with a matching C+. Takayasu. Freaking Papa Bear getting all hurt and shit. Fortunately, this time seemed to be from flying out of the ring and landing weird, not a worsening of his previous issues. I don't want to hope for too much because we've seen Takayasu drop to this level after injuries before and not immediately start popping off again. But unless he completely falls apart, he should have at least a winning record. B tier. Jason's of a similar mind, going with C+, and probably wise to be a bit less trusting in Takayasu's health. Wakamotoharu. Takayasu's dark side. Whereas Papa Bear has known issues that he's managing and we have an idea what to expect, Wakamotoharu's struggles are a mystery. Granted, he had an injured leg in March and that may still be the primary issue, but the bandages were off in May and he didn't look much better. 0-4 against the Sanyaku is one thing, 5-6 against everyone else the guys Waka is supposed to make his money against is something else entirely. Even so, he's well out of Sanyaku range and far enough down the ranks that he might see guys just as battered as him. If he's pulled himself together, he could completely go off, but I'll hedge and say C+. If he only gets 6 wins or fewer at this rank without a clear injury impairment, he might be donezo. I guess you only get so many Uchari falls in a career. Jason has him a little lower at C- and I can't argue that at all. Roga. Roga may not be great, but he's wonderfully consistent. If he beats a guy most of the time, you can bet he'll keep beating that guy most of the time. And if he usually loses to someone, he'll almost certainly keep losing. Now that he's been over-promoted to a rank where he's surrounded by guys who should beat his ass sideways, and his 9-6 May balanced out his 5-10 March, he can get back on his 7-8 track, C-. Jason's got Roga at D tier, which is completely logical if you are not aware of Roga's existence as a living meme. Fujiryoga. From incompetent in the grapple to rudimentary is a big step, and Fujiryoga took that step from March to May. It's still his weakness, see his last 3 losses, plus the one to Roga where he was so intent on keeping his belt out of Roga's grasp, he ran himself out of the ring. However, even though a lot of the guys above him are capable of giving him trouble on that basis, a lot of the ones below him won't. I'm still not expecting the world of him, but I'd be surprised if he has a losing record, B tier. Again, a similar view from Jason with a C+ placement. Tobizaru. May was a slice of the old flying monkey even at the end. He's never been one to significantly challenge the top guys, so losing his Yusho race matches wasn't a sign he's still declining. Whether he's healthy enough to be a real problem again, or he was just on a feel-good roll in May remains to be seen. But a lot of the guys he beat are still hanging around, so another good run is possible. Problem is, 9 West is likely to see guys all the way down to the bottom of the division by the end, and in this case that might be pretty bad. Kinbozan's a problem, Daiseizan should be a problem if his brain clicks on, Shishi should be a problem if his shoulder is okay, same for Onokatsu and his foot, and Asahakuryu and his knee, and Kazuma's the type of guy who will really put the flying in Tobi's nickname. Tobi can go another 9 wins with the right schedule, but odds are against it, C-. C+ for Jason though, and I gotta admit, the sport will be a little more exciting if he's right. Asanoyama. I imagine plenty of people figured, post-injury, that Asanoyama would pound his way up the ranks, and the question was how far into the Sanyaku he'd get. Instead, he's got a new foot issue to go along with his knee and the general decrepitness that's infected his return to Makuuchi. Now, results are results. He had 8 wins no later than day 12 in January and March, and was on his way to the same result before his injury in May. At 10 East, I still can't see him going fewer than 8 wins in 15 days, so I'm still putting him at B tier. But I don't feel good about it. Jason also has him at B, although I don't know if he has a similar ick. Oshoma. I bet that 4-3 start in May, especially with those 4 wins in 5 days, felt pretty good. I wonder if Chiyo dreamt of him while nursing the hammer shots he took en route to dropping 7 of his last 8. Unlike Oho or Kinbozan, who are maddeningly inconsistent when it seems like they should be consistently good, Chiyo has wildly inconsistent results because they depend on what his body feels capable of doing. Mentally, tactically, we get the same Chiyo every basho, we just don't know how well any of it'll work. Well, we know it'll have trouble working at higher ranks, but down at rank 10, double-digit wins and losses seem equally possible. The vibes say C-, so I'll go with that. Just feels like he's gonna be meh this time. Jason, however, thinks it's utterly hopeless. F tier for Chiyoshoma. Damn. But someone's gotta fail hard, I guess. Wakanosho. The non-bro Waka didn't quite storm the castle like his run through Juryo suggested he might, although I'm sure plenty of guys wish they could be as disappointing as a 9-6 record and a 5-rank move up the Banzuke. But as mentioned during last basho's recap, someone gets blessed with an unfathomably soft schedule at the end of each basho, and Wakanosho was the guy in May. From 6-6 he got 3-9 Nishiki Fuji, 5-8 Kinbozan, and 5-9 Asahakuryu. Boom, 9-6 finish. But he kind of feasted on the week all basho. Oshoumi, Ryuden, Tamawashi, Shishi. Matakayumi's not exactly top tier, even finishing 8-7, but he got Waka moving back and only lost to a well-timed arm pull. Roga got him in a bad position before he returned the favor, and that's it. That's all his wins. Even so, I think his worst case scenario is 7-8. That's if he doesn't improve at all, and I have to think he's going to be at least a little more comfortable, do a little better, get a solid win against somebody good. Another slightly optimistic ranking perhaps, but I've got Wakanosho in B tier. This might be the biggest split I've had with a fellow creator though. Jason's got Wakanosho at D tier. I say 7-8 is his worst case scenario, Jason's got it as his best case. Only one can win. Now watch him go 11-4 or 4-11 and we're both wrong. Takayumi. He spent a year straight at double-digit Maegashira. The first one coming back from Juryo, he was 10-5. Everything else has been 7-8 or 8-7. The bottom of the division is skilled, if sometimes brain dead, and the guys around him and just above are pretty good. I've got no reason to think he'll fall apart now, but C- seems like the only reasonable tier for him. That's my view anyway. Jason has him at D, but that's fair anytime a Takayumi stretches a little bit outside the lowest ranks. Asahakuryu. This was one hell of an implosion. Starts 2-1, then looks like he has no chance against anyone capable of putting up a fight. It's one thing to lose, but quite another to look like you're just hanging on for dear life. Maybe that 10-5 in March was the mirage. I'd still put him at a decent tier if I thought he'd shake off whatever happened in May and come back with a good attitude, since he can probably still do well if he gets rolling. But I can't assume that'll happen with someone who looked so incapable of creating a halfway decent attack. C-. This is another D for Jason, and I think anyone who saw Asahakuryu's May can understand where that comes from. Abi.
I don't know, and I don't care to know.
C+ for both of us. Nishikifuji. I almost combined Nishikifuji and Abi. The only reason I didn't is that Abi is much better known and has had a wider range of recent health issues, whereas it might need some explaining for Nishikifuji, but he's pretty similar. If his arms are reasonably healthy like in March, he's fine. If his arms are a wreck, like in January and May, he falls apart. Given how many beefy guys got promoted, his injuries seem more likely to be aggravated dragging them around. I'll go D tier. C- feels more correct, but if he's fine, he'll probably go 9 or more wins, and if he's not, he'll almost certainly have a losing record. No reason to pick the middle ground. Jason thinks even less of his chances though. Nishikifuji drops into Jason's F tier, which sounds oddly euphemistic. My bad. Takerufuji. Interesting detail about Takerufuji. Even though he's been in Juryo since last November, his only genuine losing record in Makuuchi came at Maegashira 4 East. The following Basho, he was 4-2 when he got hurt against Churanoumi, which led to his crash. But he also had 3 straight 8-7s in Juryo, which isn't exactly what you'd expect from someone who's still top division material. And the way I saw it, his 11-4 in May was equal parts improvement in working around his injury and a fall off in the level of competition. He couldn't use his right arm noticeably more than before, and the fact he found more wins doesn't mean it'll be the same way back in Makuuchi. He's still so damn big and strong, I can't imagine he'll completely crater unless he gets Kyujo level hurt again, but I'd be genuinely impressed if he manages 10 wins. C+. I can't blame Jason for his C- though. We still really don't have a reason to be that positive about Takerufuji at this level with all his battle scars. Kinbozan. Kinbo's slice's part in the Kisei breakdown isn't that long, but it'll have a little more detail on this statement. He needs to go for the throat. Literally. I don't expect that to happen, but I do think 14 East is low enough that he'll want to step back in for his simulacrum and protect his rank. C+. Jason, probably wisely, goes D tier. Back to Juryo with you, good sir. Shishi. Okay, Shishi fans, I hear you. He had an injured shoulder in May. I was not aware of that and would have mentioned it if I had been. However, that news remains pretty under the radar, so we don't know if it's improved at all. And that's kinda important, seeing as his first win in 6 over Hakunofuji remains a genuine mystery from an otherwise miserable May. Half the guys he beat are no longer in the division, and the trio who took their place should be much tougher fights. If he has to fight someone from Juryo, it should be Ryuden, which is a small blessing, but probably not enough. This looks a lot like 6 and 9, and pray it's enough to stay in Makuuchi. C-. Another D tier for Jason, and if I'm thinking 6 and 9, I should have done the same. Oops. Asahakuryu. Skipping ahead to deal with the other Juryo guys at once, Asahakuryu damaged his ACL against Shodai, or more precisely, he injured it in practice and made it worse against Shodai. It's described as an injury, not a tear, so it's hard to know what to expect. If we knew him to be anywhere near full strength, I'd expect a winning record from the bottom of the division, but we don't know that, and I suspect it's unlikely to be the case. The only question is how far below 100% he'll be. As it turns out, Jason and I both have him at C-. Speaking for myself, he's better than that, but like we saw with Toki Hayate's injured MCL, smaller guys at less than full health tend to be more significantly affected than the big boys. If he can go 8-7 without making it worse, that would be a genuine win. Better than that would mean he's either in surprisingly good health or he's about to become an absolute monster once he's healed. And now those remaining Juryo guys. Onokatsu. The big takeaway from Onokatsu's May is that he couldn't really put weight on his injured foot. He still finished 9-6 because, easy as it may have been to forget watching him spin his wheels at Maegashira 6, he's pretty good at this sumo thing. Plus, he beat Fujiryoga and Kazuma, which speaks well of his ability to keep pace against the bottom of the division in general. In past bashos, that would land him at C+, but this new, slightly more positive attitude of mine says it's very unlikely he goes 7-8. Thus, Onokatsu lands in B tier. Jason, however, has now definitely created the largest gap between myself and a creator yet, even including Goose's meme picks. He's got Onokatsu at F tier. Maximum 6 wins. Again, I feel like he knows something I don't. It's entirely possible that I paid too close attention to when he was healthy and whole, and I'm biased towards thinking he'll do better than is likely. All I can imagine now though is him going 7-8 and falling directly between our picks. Kazuma. Think a bigger Fujiryoga without the massive weakness while grappling. He's still much happier playing choo-choo trains with opponents tied to the tracks, but he's at least not completely lost on the belt. If I have concerns, they're not about his 8-7 Juryo debut. He started 1-4 there, and his 7-3 finish was more along the lines of March and May. It's more dropping matches to Kazekano, Dewanoryu, and Kyokukayu, none of whom look quite ready for the real spotlight. Nevertheless, he should be fine. I kinda wanna put him in A-, but more top division guys fight smart these days rather than put their heads down and charge hopelessly into walls. He might need this first basho to acclimate himself to the jump in competition, so he goes to B tier. Kazuma's a C- for Jason though. Not quite an Onokatsu-sized gap, but I'm guessing he sees this as Kazuma's basho to get used to the new level he's reached. If so, yeah, that's fair. And finally, Daiseizan. The only reason I haven't bashed Daiseizan as much as Oho is because he's been lingering in Juryo, but oh lord, it's coming. This is a guy who steadily climbed from Mizumo to the second division without a losing record to his name, just 2 bashos missed due to injury. He struggled a bit once he got there, but plenty of people were excited about the possibilities, especially once he hit Juryo 1. Then it took almost a year for him to pass that point. He seems like someone who should run through Juryo, and sometimes he even fights like one. Then he just kinda stops trying or forgets what to do or something, not just losing but looking atrocious in defeat. And it's like, is this guy a head case or is he not really built for this? Does his body look like he should have a 95 in power but it's really just a 75? Someone connected to his old high school even sent him a new Keisho Mawashi 6 months ago because they figured he'd be in Makuuchi by now. What the f is going on? Truth is, we still don't know. At Juryo 1 West, where simple 8-7 would probably be enough to land him in Makuuchi, he started 5-0. Promotion looked like a fait accompli. Yet, on the verge of locking up his most significant career achievement, he went 2-6 before lucking into a match against battered Toki Hayate to secure win number 8. This is someone who should be able to stick in Makuuchi and might even get off to a strong start. But barring a significant change in approach, we have to expect he'll look completely lost at some point, and who knows what kind of carnage that'll lead to. And yet, I'm putting him at C+. It's dumb. I freely acknowledge it's dumb, but here's how I see it. If he gets on a roll, if he starts feeling himself, or maybe if he actually feels less pressure now that he's made it to Makuuchi, I think a 9-6 record is on the table. If he falters though, if things go wrong and he gets in his own head, he could go 6 wins or 5 or 4, a lot of bad records become possible. I can feel this is a terrible idea as I type out this script, but I'm going with it, C+. For his part, Jason says D is for Daiseizan, and that seems like the most correct pick of all. And that's our tier list, and Jason's for July 2026. Plenty of different predictions, so it should be a hell of a competition. And remember, the community form is in the description, and the live stream for the community tier list is Saturday, July 4th at 9 AM US Eastern. As for now, have a great day, and I'll see you soon.